Hi, my name is Imran Ali. I'm the manager of a small charity called Neighbourhood Learning Centre based in Port Talbot. The charity aim is to improve the educational skills of the local residents and help them so they can compete effectively in the competitive labour market. The demographics of the area is 85% Pakistani, and naturally the community has several barriers including language. As a charity, we are governed by a constitution and a board of trustees. The trustees are ultimately responsible for the direction and steering of the organisation. The charity is financially supported through various sources of funding: the lottery, the trust, the foundations, and it is my responsibility as a manager to deliver these portfolio of projects and also account for all the public funds that are being used. I have been doing this for the last 4 years and thoroughly enjoy my job. Feedback from my successful interview about 4 years ago revealed it was due to my long-standing career history working in this sector, as well as my links with the community and the ability to speak different community languages, mainly Punjabi and Urdu. And also my background was of a Pakistani heritage background, and my religion was Islam. Until last year, everything was going fine. Particularly the last 6 months became very difficult for me as a manager. It became more difficult, strenuous and emotionally painful to get up and go to work. The reason for this emotional pain was due to one of the trustees who was of Indian descent. One evening, just before I was finishing work, he turned up at my office unannounced and said he would like to have a little chat with me. So naturally I put my laptop back down and sat down with him to have a chat. The chat was about asking him for me to leave the organisation. Not detailing why he wanted me to leave the organisation. The discussion was, we'd like you to leave in the next 2 months, and that was it. I was taken back by this, and on the way home and driving back home I was thinking. I wasn't happy with this at all. The next 2 months went by and I was still there. I hadn't moved. I really loved my job and I wasn't going to be pushed out of a job by this individual who said to me he wants me to go. It was now approaching Christmas, and in line with company policy I booked my annual leave off to get away from this chaos and enjoy some time with family. Over the festive period, a letter dropped on my doorstep. The content of the letter stipulated that I was on suspension and was to return to work until further notice. No details of the suspension was made. Alarming, the letter was signed off by the treasurer, and in my career history something on this context would be signed off by the chair. Shocked by this letter, I called the chair to shed some light on this. To my surprise, he was unaware of this, and he said he didn't authorise any letter to go out. And I explained the letter was signed by the treasurer. He promised to look into this and get back to me. In reflection of these actions, it dawned upon me the real motive behind this. This takes me back to the summer, where the trustee of the Indian descent wanted me to merge with another organisation he had an interest with, who was also of an Indian organisation. I took this proposal on board and I promised I would develop a business case and undertake a SWOT analysis. The findings of this research was not in his favour for this merger. I soon realised that this proposal of a merger was to save a sinking ship. The organisation that he wanted the merger with had several key contracts that they had lost in the last few months, and they had huge overheads and liabilities. They wanted us to merge with this organisation so we could fund them and keep their organisation from collapsing. It was my duty as the centre manager to report and present this to our trustees at the next board meeting. Now this was going to be in opposite of what the treasurer wanted me to do, which was to support the facilitation of this merger. I was quite vocal about this, and for this reason I now feel this was the reason behind my suspension. And whilst I'm on suspension, I feel this is one method of putting me to a side, allowing for the merger to go ahead, where I won't disrupt the merger process. Over the festive period, as well as handing out suspension letters, the treasurer dissolved the current committee, including the chair, changed the locks of the centre, and set up a new board made up of trusted and loyal friends. Before going on annual leave, I did raise all these incidences in a grievance detailing the bullying and harassments which was driving me out of a job. And I was expecting that letter that dropped on my doorstep to be that, but clearly it wasn't that. The whole organisation had been running smoothly under my control, and because of this one individual, it was bringing mayhem to the organisation. I was really concerned that the local residents would miss out on the services which I really fought for, and also the hard work I put in drawing down £100,000 worth of funding to make these projects a success. I made reference earlier to some bullying, and this bullying was in link with increasing workload and the pressure that was put on, which was beyond the roles and responsibilities of the centre manager. Also want to put on the record that when I started employment, I made it quite clearly to the trustees that I had a slight disability of a hearing impairment, and this was to remain confidential and on file, but it would not disrupt me in doing my job on a day-to-day basis. This was used upon and was used as a joke against me on several occasions, which I didn't really like. So the bullying and the harassment was all put in that grievance, which hadn't been acknowledged. 6 months later, I finally received a letter detailing the reasons for my suspension, which included alleged financial mismanagement and treating staff badly, and was invited to a disciplinary hearing. So whilst in my employment over the 4 years, the trustees on occasions hinted that I should get married. It's in our culture to get married earlier. However, I was career focused, and this became a joke and a tease for them, making comments like, "We'll find you a good partner, don't your parents push you, why don't you get married?" These comments were awkward, particularly embarrassing in front of colleagues and clients who used our services. Whilst working for the centre, I found historic paperwork which related to an Indian manager who had been dismissed on financial mismanagement, who couldn't account for £30,000 of public funds. It appears, because he was Indian and the committee was also Indian, that the whole episode was handled internally hush hush, and it was solved and led to the dismissal of the manager with full pension. One reason they didn't want me to join a trade union was because of the culture of resolving issues like this in-house without the need of external parties. Looking at the historic records, the Indian manager was able to retire on full pension, whereas my case was not being pursued in the correct sequence or format, where I knew the allegations made against me were incorrect.